Contrary, no. Ayes have it. The question now is that clauses 1 and 2 stand part. The question is that clause 1 stand part.
Mr. Chairman.
I call the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman, can I just seek clarification? Are we doing 1 and 2 together, or are we doing them separately?
Well, you can do both together.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to seek leave.
Votes.
I'm happy to seek leave that clauses 1 and 2 be taken as one debate, but with 2 separate votes.
Is there any objection to that course of action being taken? There is none.
Oh, that was pretty speedy progress in resolution. I'd recommend that to other members of the House who tried putting procedural motions before the House earlier this evening. Mr. Chairman, ordinarily you don't miss a thing that goes on in this House. You are one of the most careful followers of procedures, and I just want to draw to your attention that a little earlier, like very recently in the House, I tried to get a call on part 3 and you missed it. So that's the second time this evening by 2 separate members who have been sitting in the chair. The first one asked me to speak a little louder, which caused great amusement to not only to me,
maybe
but other
the members should get 2 calls this time.
Other members of the House. But then you missed my call altogether, Mr. Chairman, so I take particular note of that. There were actually some specific queries that I had in relation to part 3, and I'm disappointed that I wasn't able to raise them because they related to things that I'm actually genuinely interested in, and I think other members of the House are, in regard to the way that inquiries under this Act, obviously the Inquiries Act 2008, which will be amended by this bill and which will come into force on the day after the date on which it receives royal assent. Those are the 2 clauses we're discussing at the moment. But in a previous debate, which I wasn't able to participate in part 3, in clause 12, it refers to the reporting requirements of different inquiries, and in a public inquiry instigated by the Governor-General compared to the government inquiry, and then it says the final report of a public inquiry must be presented to the appropriate minister to the House of Representatives as soon as practicable after the inquiry has reported. And I was going to ask the minister, and even though he's not the minister in charge of the chair, I know that he's quite fussy about responding to questions in the House. It's a trait of his that I particularly enjoy. I was going to ask him actually when do the government inquiries have to report to the public? So if the minister wouldn't mind passing that on to the relevant minister, if he could refer to it in his 3rd reading speech to answer my question, which the chairman didn't allow me an opportunity to answer, then I'd really appreciate it. The other comment that I wanted to make is that I was really concerned about an early contribution from the New Zealand First member, Dennis O'Rourke, in relation to clause 19.3, where he talked about the chief executive of the legal aid authority being able to determine whether an inquiry set up under this Act was able to get legal aid funding, and said that my understanding of what the member Dennis O'Rourke said was that the legal aid agency, rather than the inquiry itself, would make the determination. And I had some discussions with colleagues about that because I was concerned about that alerting that the member had drawn to the attention of the committee of the House. But my understanding is that in that section, actually the chief executive is the chief executive of the department that is responsible for the inquiry under this Act. So it's either the chief executive of the Department of Internal Affairs, or if an inquiry set up under this Act is under, I don't know, it might be under, if it was, for example, the inquiry that my colleague Darian Fenton was referring to, an inquiry into the health and safety in the forestry regime, well, it may well come under the Department of Labour unit within the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. Or, at the end of the year, it would come under the Chief Executive or the Chair of the Board of the new Health and Safety Agency. So I think that the member, Dennis O'Rourke, was not correct in his interpretation. But that's another thing that I think would be useful for the minister in the chair to refer to the minister responsible for the bill, and that's, you know, I still feel a bit of a need for an inquiry into that particular question. Who is the minister responsible for this bill? Is it the Honourable Krista Main, or is it the Honourable Nathan Guy? Either way, between the two of them, I think they should be very satisfied that the particular amendments put up by members tonight from both sides of the House, from the government side and from opposition side, have been supported. I'm pretty sure that the amendments have passed without exception. That's a good indication of careful consideration of the bill. My colleague Trevor Mallard put in an amendment which I actually wished had been considered under the earlier bill that we were discussing, the GCSB bill, because his amendment inserted the following subclause: in the benefits of observing the principle of open justice. Well, we would have supported that in the GCSB bill, but I don't suppose the government members will. Mr Chairman, just going back to the parts that we're debating at the moment, we know that the Act is unamended. It's the Act to amend the Inquiries Act. It's the Inquiries Bill, so the primary act is the Inquiries Act 2008. This bill before the House now was introduced in 2008 by the Honourable Rick Barker under a previous government. It's been a long time coming to this point. Fortunately, the commencement date, which is the other part that we're voting on, the Act comes into force on the day after the date on which it receives the royal assent. Can't come soon enough, Mr Chairman.
The question is that clauses 1 and 2 stand part, but before we do that, we'll vote separately. The question is that clause 1 stand part. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that clause 2 stand part. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. The ayes have it. I will report this bill with amendment. Sorry, a point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Chairman, I'd just like to draw your attention to a discrepancy, or an apparent discrepancy, between the clocks that are currently in here. I know that members have been carefully timing their debate for 9:55, which is the time when you have to report progress, but I note that it says 9:55 now on the clock at which you are looking, but the one at which I'm looking at says 9:54. And I would invite... Is it? Do you think so? 54, 55, 56. I think it's probably appropriate to have an inquiry, but I'm sure, sir, when it does get to 9:55, you will interrupt my point of order in order to report progress, because that would be your obligation under the rules. But, sir, the question is whether you're looking at the clock just in front of you, or the one up there, or the one over here.
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member.
We're not.
I was going to speak in support.
I will report this bill with amendment.
Well done.
The House is resumed. Mr Chairman.
Mr Speaker, the committee has considered the Inquiries Bill and reports it with amendment. The committee has further considered the Resource Management Reform Bill and reports no progress. The committee has also considered the Insurance Prudential Supervision Amendment Bill and reports no progress. Mr Speaker, I move that the report be adopted.
The question is that the report be adopted. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. So the Inquiries Bill is set down for third reading next sitting day, and the Resource Management Reform Bill and the Insurance Prudential Supervision Amendment Bill are set down for further consideration in committee next sitting day. And the House will stand adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow. Good evening, everybody.